This episode of Access to the Arts is being made possible through the support of First Bank Richmond. Bank where you belong. Hi, and welcome to this edition of Access to the Arts. I'm Eric, Executive Director of Whitewater Community Television. Thank you very much for joining us. I have a chance to speak with Mary Walker, Executive Director of Wayne County Convention and Tourism Bureau, and Pamela Bliss, mural artist that has created or been the impetus behind a number of the murals that you see around Wayne County. Ladies, thank you very much for taking some time and joining me on Access to the Arts today.
Thank you.
Pamela, I've had a chance while doing this show to speak to a few different artists who work in photography and painting and other things. You do, but I haven't had a chance to speak to somebody who works in the size that you do and in the medium that you do in terms of public art on the side of a building, various sizes. Talk about what got you started and what made you realize that working outdoors and on buildings was where you really wanted to be.
Well, the first time I had seen some public art and a few artists I was inspired by. And so that was always in the back of my mind. And when I was going to college, it was at the tail end of my degree, actually. Someone contacted the university and asked if there was anyone that could paint a mural in Richmond of Vic Spiderbeck and the Rhythm Jugglers. And my art professor, they contacted my art professor, and he referred me because my forte is portraiture and that kind of thing. And he said, probably the only one that can probably do that right now is Pamela Bliss. And so they called me, and I appreciate his, the credit he gave me. But so that kind of started the ball rolling. That was the very first one. It was in Richmond, and it was on the corner of South 9th and South A Streets, the insurance company there. And so it's covered now because the wall had to be recovered. It was falling. But I repainted that one later on North 8th. But that's how I got started. And they asked me to do another one, and then another one, another one. Then it slowly became my business.
Mary, this public art that Pamela is talking about, I think has been something that has really made Wayne County an interesting place to drive through, and I think it's made it interesting even for the residents. Talk about, from the Tourism Bureau standpoint, what you all have gotten in terms of response to the amount of public art that we have in Wayne County.
Absolutely. We have over 85 murals and public art pieces. And so these will be in addition to. Pamela and I worked, 10 years ago on what was called the Festival of Murals, and then it was the Festival of the Arts. So through those programs, initially, that's how the murals really came to be. And then murals have added murals. So people on their own have put it on their side of their buildings. And it is a way to beautify an area and connect people and have them be proud of their neighborhood and their where they're living, where they're working. And so it's a tremendous opportunity for engagement, for quality of place, for people to really enjoy where they're living. And I think that's the key is that it's just, it helps with beautification, with pride, with all of those things. And so to have these throughout Wayne County is really phenomenal. And in this particular Wayne County Murals program this year, there are going to be several murals in very small communities that have never had a mural. So this will be something that they too can gather around and be a gathering place and have pride in their own small communities.
Pamela, this always allows us a chance to meet some artists from different places, and this year is no different. You were telling me that there's artists from Indianapolis, artists that spend their time between Chicago and Germany. Talk about some of the artists that are working in this area and getting to know a little bit about Wayne County this summer.
Okay, yeah, quite a few are local, and we try to focus on local. We wanted to do local, first, but we did have some good quality artists. Their work is quality from outer areas, so we'd wanted to consider them too. The local artists, they're predominantly from Indianapolis and Carmel, that kind of area. We've got some that we consider not local, which is like northern Indiana. If they have to drive 2 hours or more, we consider them non-local. One of them's from Fort Wayne. Another one is from Groverton, Indiana, which they are also based out of Berlin, Germany as well. And then we've got one from Toronto, Canada. We've got one from White House, Ohio. And then we've got one from Miami, Florida.
Talk about this festival, because there are prizes that will be presented, and talk about how these murals are being judged, how these awards are being given out.
Well, the judges we have are actually a couple of muralists themselves, and from out of the area. And then we've got an art educator. So we'll have 3 judges who will be judging these murals, and then the prizes are the artists are commissioned. They will get paid to do the murals, but there's also additional prizes where first place will be $10,000, second place is $5,000, and third place is $2,500. So they have great incentive to do their best work.
Talk about when these are going up, when we will be able to see some of these finished pieces, and how is this finally going to wrap up?
Well, the out-of-town artists, they all will be coming at the end of July 29th, and be painting for a few weeks. There's a couple of artists have already started, one in Economy, and then one in Centerville. They have already started theirs. And then the other ones are in the process. They'll be starting this week. So we gave them a wide window because muralists, specifically muralists, that's their painting time, is the warm weather. So we had to kind of give them a broad window to fit them in, because, a lot of them already have projects in the works. And so we had to give them that wide window to start. The end of it, they have to be done by August 31st.
Mary, you mentioned we've already got 85 pieces of public art. Why add additional art throughout Wayne County like this?
Just adds to our landscape, and it adds to the beauty of our community, and it adds to our telling people outside of our community that we want to attract for retention, attraction and retention purposes, that we are an arts community, that from a county perspective, that we value the arts. It is part of our inherent qualities as a county. And so to have all of these, not just for locals to enjoy, but for visitors, we have a Wayne County Murals Trail that people can go on, and we'll be adding these when they're finished. And then also, again, from the attraction and retention standpoint. So these murals have the ability to really make people smile in all of those segments. And so it's not very often you can take one thing and have it populate into other areas and be meaningful. So we're very pleased with that. And I was remiss in saying earlier that Pamela is serving as the Wayne County Murals Program project manager. So Pamela is in charge of everything from beginning to end, for the call out to the artists that we had a few months ago, to the making sure the walls are prepped, to the herding all of the different artists to their walls and getting them going. The designs have already been approved by the wall owners. So we are really, her timeline that she set initially, we are spot on with that timeline. And then the goal would be in September, we do the judging and then announcement of winners sometime mid to end of September.
We've only got about a
And
minute or so.
also,
Go ahead, Pamela. Go ahead.
I'd like to also add, we wanted to, another reason why we're doing murals is because we also wanted to include the some of the smaller towns that don't have murals. We focused on them first. We tried to find walls. We did find walls in some of them, like Economy. That was a hard, difficult place to find a wall, but we found a wall. And like Dublin and, East Germantown, they don't have murals. So we focused on them first. And then because Richmond has some murals, but we do have 4 of the murals that are going to go in Richmond just because of the dynamics of, finding walls in the small towns. And then some of the walls didn't work out. So we had to shift gears. We've had to shift gears a couple of times. But we feel like we've got some good representation, at least in some of the smaller towns.
And then just to add briefly, those a couple of additional towns that are also having murals through this program is Hagerstown and Mount Auburn, in addition to the ones that Pamela mentioned.
Okay. Mary, is there anything that you need to mention before I let you all go? Something I haven't asked you that really needs to go?
We haven't talked about this, but we will have, and we can get you something that you can post on with this Focus on the Arts segment, but we will have where the audience, those who want to know where are the murals going to be, what is the design, we'll have all of that posted via a website, whether it's through Visit Richmond or we create one. We will get that to you for your listeners and your viewers so that they can also participate. We would really encourage locals, not just Richmond, but all over throughout Wayne County and even in the region, while these artists are painting, stop by, say hello, welcome them to our communities. They are very open and willing to have conversations, even though they're busy painting. So we'll have all of that together so that visitors and locals can see where they're going and participate in that vein as well.
Pamela, is there anything that we need to know from your end that I have not asked you about? Or in particular, when we try to interact with these artists, how do we do that? They obviously are trying to work. There's a certain amount of concentration that's needed. How do we interact with them without completely distracting them from what they need to do?
Yeah, you can go and you can observe, watch them paint. Most of them don't, it doesn't bother them for them to be watched. I would wait until they came, if they're on a lift, I would wait till they come down off the lift to try to have a conversation with them. If they're up high, it's a little bit difficult, for them to yell back and forth. So, but I encourage them to go and at least watch the artists.
Cool. Mary Walker, Pamela Bliss, I thank you both for your time and for being on Access to the Arts. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric.
The court's always been my place, where everything just flows. Banking with First Bank Richmond, it's no different. Day in, day out, shot after shot, rep after rep, building my legacy and my financial gain. First Bank Richmond, this is where I belong.
WCTV supports local entertainment. WCTV supports local information. WCTV supports our local students. WCTV needs your support to continue supporting our community, and it's easy to do. Become a member as an individual or family. Nonprofit and business memberships are also available, with benefits including video production and program sponsorship. Membership donations are critical, and when deciding where your support dollars go, support an organization that serves the community you live in. Visit WCTV.info or call 765-973-8488.
Welcome back to Access to the Arts. Appreciate First Bank Richmond, bank where you belong, for being a supporter of Access to the Arts and the arts organizations in and around Wayne County as a whole. Having a chance to speak with Monica Koshline from the Richmond Symphony Orchestra. We have not spoken in a number of months. I saw you before your signature event in the spring, so real quickly, how was it?
It was the biggest that we've ever had, depending on what you call, what you define as bigger. Bigger audience, great generosity from this community, a really great time at Wild Wild West.
Nice.
Love to throw these events, and one thing I learned as we've gone through the years is to really release that need for control that evening, because you don't have any. You have simply provided an opportunity, and people are going to create their own experience, and as long as you're happy with that, letting them do whatever they want to do, it always ends up being a good time, because people define fun differently.
Yes, they do. You had a good first year with your new musical director. I saw plenty of pictures of smiles. I'm getting it right now. Talk about building that relationship.
Yeah. Andres is just a great partner for the RSO, a great partner for me too. We're learning. We have to be honest with each other. We have to set deadlines and timelines that serve both of our needs. Andres sometimes will bring something up, and then we'll be discussing it, because I'm immediately going to go to fundraising, partnerships, and logistics of how to get it done, right? And marketing. Those are my areas.
Okay.
And sometimes he just wants me to sit. Why can't we just sit and envision? And I said, because my role isn't to envision. My role is to
Get it done.
Support it and to create it. And so we do have to have those conversations about how I'm going to look at things from a very different perspective. And when I get too much into the weeds, he'll say, let's put a pin in that. And so I've had to say to him, the problem is sometimes you take the pin out and you don't tell me the pin came out, which I love, because then he says, we talked about this months ago. And I said, and you put a pin in it. So we have a great time together. We have so much joy, and Andres has elevated the music director's position right along with my position. He has expected me to remain out of the weeds, not carrying chairs, not feeding the musicians, but instead bringing donors to rehearsals. And I have loved feeling like a director. I've loved feeling like an equal. It's been a breath of fresh air. I'm so glad that the community fully accepted the Richmond Symphony's choice. All of the candidates were great. All of the candidates were loved for different reasons, and all of the different candidates were not the right one at this time. And Andre seemed to be the right fit for the RSO at this time based on our strategic goals and needs.
Cool. You all are heading into year 2. What are you looking forward to? Your first concert is almost right around the corner. It's September 14th.
Yes. I was really surprised last year when Andres said that symphonies always open their season with the Star Spangled Banner. I had no idea. We had never done that. And we didn't put it in our program.
Right.
And he came out, and the symphony stood, and the Star Spangled Banner started. And there was such a wild response to that. People just love that patriotic feel that just started off the season. So he's going to start every season with that. There were lots of little opportunities, and I know he'll look for them again, to provide encores. He loves speaking to the audience. He loves the idea that the experience begins when you enter the hall and doesn't end until you're home. He loves the idea of giving people opportunity to talk. So I've really seen a change with the symphony and the way that the board embraces what we're doing and sees again, how do we bring that experience into the hall as opposed to just providing a program that you take or leave, right?
I have to say, you mentioned his wanting people to talk. When he was, and I was at your first concert last year, when he was doing his talk ahead of time, he was looking for that response from the folks that were sitting there.
Yeah, it's very different. It's very different than I've seen in the past, where it is, I need you to ask me questions because I don't know what you want to know. I don't know what depth of listener that you are. Some people, they want to know what a concerto is. Some people already know that. So I love that there's that engagement with all ages. And even after the concerts, he's always listening when someone says, I loved the second piece. What did you love about it? Because he wants to know, what do you want to hear more of from the Richmond Symphony? How can the Richmond Symphony serve you better? And that's been a real change. And I look for that to continue. I was surprised at the length of time that it takes to transition a new music director into the position. I expected him to walk in and start running. And he did in some ways. What I didn't understand was that there's a time for transition into that music director's position as it relates to the orchestra, the stage, the rehearsals, the performances. I didn't understand that. So there's been a lot of onboarding. There's been a lot of him setting new policies and procedures for hiring, him setting new policies and procedures for auditions. How musicians get their music. They're getting it online now as opposed to us mailing it by paper. How we take care of the library, what we purchase, what we rent. So there's all these procedures that are all being created and people's jobs are being elevated and they're expected to do higher level performance. Then we've seen him on board onto the Richmond Symphony Board as an ex officio employee. He's never answered to a board before. He's always answered to somebody who answers to a board.
Okay.
And so beginning to understand that role, that the board isn't going to tell him what to do, but it's going to set strategies in which we will exist and we will expand upon those strategies. We'll meet those objectives that they set, but not necessarily what you're going to program. Has been interesting to watch and explaining that we don't own the strategic plan. We fulfill the strategic plan. And he hasn't had as much time as I would have liked, and part of that is having a second job that will no longer be the associate conductor in Columbus as of August 30th. And so he'll just be working with Richmond. He'll stay in Columbus, Ohio, but he'll be much more accessible to begin being onboarded into this community and seen as a leader, seen as someone who needs to sit at the table when we talk about quality of life in Richmond, Indiana, in the region. So we'll continue to see transition, and I've loved every minute of it. I've loved every minute of it.
That's great.
Yeah.
I really am glad to hear that because I know the couple of years leading into this were stressful and tiring and everything else, and I'm glad the symphony has come out a little bit better. We've got just probably 3 or 4 minutes to talk about what the upcoming season's going to be like. A couple of things you all are still keeping intact. Some of those Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock, 3:30 starts, particularly in the winter, so people can drive home mostly in the light and enjoy your September and your spring events, Saturday nights at 7:30. Get us through Christmas at least and what people can expect.
Well, people can expect 2 family concerts again, one at Halloween and one during the holiday. And I've loved the families that's brought in, and the not the disrespectful, but the little movements and little noises we hear in the hall as young children experience the RSO for the first time. The little oohs and the little ahs, and when they become impatient, right? It's a joy to have another layer of, sound in the hall, which is what we want to do. We really want to target young people. In addition to that, we'll see the Earlham Chorus. Partnering with the IU East Chorus, partnering with our RSO singers, and we will see a requiem for the first time under my tenure. That'll be at the end of the season in March. It'll be a Saturday night, and we'll have a harp soloist at the end of the season in May. So we're going to see Andres continue to expand and reach out to this community. We're bringing back youth education with a vengeance.
Nice.
We're excited. We've spent a lot of time listening to our teachers and what they need and how are we serving those kids just trying to get them started in music, or are we serving those kids that show promise? And it's a both and. And so as we look to expand that, we're finding new sponsorships, new opportunities. People are very generous with the youth of this community. I'm just excited to see it all roll out. I get a front row seat, but I also get a back row seat. It's fantastic.
If people want to know about tickets, season tickets are on sale throughout, and they can be prorated. Individual tickets actually on sale the day this show airs, which is August 1st. If somebody's interested in tickets for individual shows, finding out more about the symphony, how they can help, maybe volunteer, talk a little bit about that real quick.
RichmondSymphony.org is your best place to find online information, but I'll tell you what, I've got some of the friendliest staff members in the community that are happy to help you figure out how to navigate the RSO, what to expect at your first concert, how to enjoy the experience. And they can call us at 765-966-5181. And I'm out and about in the community. Message me, call me, leave me an email. Let's get together and talk about what the RSO is to you individually and how best you can engage.
I know you may not have the title and all of that, but your signature event that we started talking about has been so successful. Are you burned out? Are you not going to do it? Or are we coming around one more time with a theme someplace?
We're going to come around one more time, and then the plan is to maybe transition into something else, which we're working on. I believe the title will be Shaken Not Stirred, and it'll be a James Bond themed event.
Okay.
So we'll see. I have no idea what I'm going to do or what I'm going to wear or what's going to be expected of me, but I know it's going to be a good time.
Monica Koshline from the Richmond Symphony Orchestra. Always good to talk to you. Great to catch up on the Symphony Orchestra. RichmondSymphony.org if you need information on shows, tickets, or anything else. Thanks for joining us for this Access to the Arts made possible by the great folks at First Bank Richmond. We always appreciate their support. Thanks for watching, and as always, I wish you well. This episode of Access to the Arts is being made possible through the support of First Bank Richmond. Bank where you belong.